Exactly. I agree with you completely.
Well, let me just say this. The evidence for the narrative economics is all over Elon Musk's X space, if you want, or X account, if you do want to see the evidence. And unlike an actual trial in the real world, where actually I just got off of a conference call on a status hearing, a judge and attorney, because I'm suing the federal government. This is not an actual courtroom, Steve. This is a conference call for strokers. It's called Dinner for Schmucks. Welcome to your reality. Hello. Oh, hello! Because even
And see, dude, this is what you're defending.
Space actually got really scared in the space that I'm occupying right now. I did not have a
Well, I would just quote Pro Lyrical here, who yesterday said he doesn't give an F about this app and the stupid people here because he's got a life and he's busy running it, and this app is tangential, just a little sidekick piece in his little back pocket. So if you didn't hear what I said, I'll quickly give you the recap. Elon Musk is a propagandist. His X account, the biggest one on the platform, propagandizes lunar development. The only way to pay for lunar development is through taxation and borrowing. As an American, as a voter, and as a politician, I stand up and reject Elon Musk's vision of because he wants to. This is his logical reasoning for why he wants lunar colonies to preserve. Gets built.
I find it equally, though. I don't know if you do. So, do you think the billion for the ballroom could be better spent on the homelessness as well? Because I know you're a Trump fan. Are you able to say that as well?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I don't care about a stupid ballroom at the White House. Who gives a fuck?
Oh, I appreciate that. Because you got to buy it kind of equally. And,
but the thing about the ballroom
I do think there is. You can make.
But the thing about the ballroom I do think
there is. You can make an argument for a different kind of return on investment with the stuff that goes on with the moon. And while I do think a lot of it is posturing and posing and always has been, there's certainly very real science that takes place. So I mean, it's not all.
I agree.
And just like this app, while you're very correct, I take it as entertainment, like I think you do. There is also very real conversation that takes place, and so it's more fun to engage in the conversation when it's stimulating. Sometimes stimulating is because of the ridiculous things that people say. That sometimes can be entertaining. But if we had our druthers, we'd probably all rather be in rooms that are both entertaining, stimulating, and bring up ideas that we've never got to think about, as opposed to just people screaming and hollering or whatever. But that's especially when you're reminded of how wasted time Clubhouse can be for anything other than a radio station that you choose to interact on when you like what's on the station.
And speaking of the ridiculous things that people say, you still haven't addressed the two things that I repeated that you said. Number one, Elon Musk is a flat earther, and number two, Elon Musk is spreading rhetoric.
Yeah.
So if you choose to retract those two
statements,
you
don't understand.
I'm all good.
I'm not saying
If you choose not to retract those two statements, then I'm going to continue to call you on your bullshit.
Okay, let me retract the flat earther, because he's not a flat earther in the sense that we know them here on Clown House and on other platforms. I mean that flat earthers don't understand what they're even talking about, what they're trying to express, but they have a linguistic language incapability. Is they're trying to talk about philosophy, and they believe that economic and equity and it should be flat, meaning that we should have real equality. But they are actually, that's why I'm saying Elon is deranged in the same way. Not that he's an actual flat earther, so let me retract that. And when I say rhetoric, I just mean propaganda. Elon Musk is the spreader of some of the most anti-American propaganda out there, which is to continue taxing and borrowing from us to support his utopian dream fantasy of maintaining human consciousness on lunar colonies. It is the epitome of anti-American stupidity. And he is an elite liberal intellectual like many of you in this room who don't know how to defend your home, don't know how to defend a perimeter, don't know how to have a moral. I know some of you agree with me that I think the biggest problem is our immoral currency. Yeah, immoral currency. You know it, I know it. 40 trillion in debt, $7 trillion a year in budget. It's outrageous. I land. Thank you, John.
Yeah, so you've got a lot of outrage at Elon for things like that. You have an outrage for spending taxpayer money on the moon, on a lot of things like that. And and when asked about the ballroom, you don't care about that. You don't care about that. I think you let him off the hook a little bit when you tried to pin him down on whether there's any consistency in this schmuck's worldview. He's a Trumpy, for God's sake. He's sitting here decrying Elon Musk wasting taxpayer money. Does he care about slush funds created from settlements with $10 billion lawsuits?
Yeah, but John, the difference is it's rare when you get. I'm not expecting overnight success asking someone who's a blatant Trump fan to, disown everything Trump says, but it's a step when you can honestly say that the ballroom is a waste of money, and that's at least something.
He said he didn't care about it.
Well, that's what he meant.
Say it's a waste of money. He said he didn't care about it. What he also said, which I'm going to comment now, is that he had a hearing today or yesterday where he's suing lawsuits have been filed against him for election fraud.
No, incorrect, not true. That was a blurb on a news website. Not true, fake news. That was fake news on a blurb on a website.
I have no ire for somebody who's going to say that that it's a Trump fan who says that, who I think it maybe you're right about, but I think the implication there is a little bit of a concession that is at least a bullshit project. And that can also clearly see that there's a hell of a lot of propaganda that comes out of Elon Musk emails. I've never had a problem with somebody who's going to say that either. In fact, I'm a little surprised that you even went down that pathway. So I see that as a small progress. Anybody who's reframing Twitter as a, what was he calling it? Absolute free speech platform. I mean, come on, give me a break. It clearly is
still the hypocrisy, the overwhelming hypocrisy of the.
I consider the source, John.
Elon Musk.
I consider the source. I do not draw. I do not draw. Yeah, but I don't draw major ire from. I expect him to come in and say something 10 times as bombastic as that, and that's actually. Look, if I came in the room and I said, there's a lot of bullshit waste that's going on, and Elon Musk is behind a lot of it. And, I could even say that the ballroom is a bunch of waste, and I'm a Trump fan. And, oh, by the way, here's a few examples of Trump spreading propaganda. I'm not losing my shit over that one. There's a lot more things.
Bro, if the ballroom's only $1 billion and we're experiencing at least $365 billion a year in fraud, and that's only 10% of the $4.2 trillion in Medicare, Medicaid, 10% would be $400 billion. So what is $1 billion when we lose $1 billion a day to fraud? That's what I'm saying. $1 billion ballroom, to me, the money could be spent on tiny homes, affordable housing. I think that if Trump wanted to be magnanimous, he would actually build Trump cities for the low and disadvantaged that need housing. Housing is the biggest burden on anyone's lives. The expense, the cost. You have to keep working nonstop just to keep a roof over your head. It's insanity. It's the biggest expense in anybody's pocketbook. But Steve, I am suing the federal government, and I'm suing the IRS for sexual harassment and for workplace violence.
I'm going to post your lawsuit that you filed in the group chat.
In the group chat, this cell phone is a burner phone. First of all, Steve, I'd have to go to my actual office desktop to pull up the EEOC complaint. And why I would waste my time proving to you about a personal business matter, Steve, get a life, man.
I would say stop lying and start telling the truth.
Trying, my man.
I would never publish my personal documents for law claims personally, but then again, I don't know if I'd be talking that I'd be making them either. There's that point, but.
Well, I love you to death.
I'm just saying that the ability to like, there's a lot of public things. Like yesterday, I discussed how I don't usually go by my first public document about myself. Might be more than some people want to do.
Right. However, please always remember and never forget that it was kidding for office. He solicited donations on Clubhouse. That makes him a public figure and subjects him to certain things that people like you or me, and I've got thousands of documentations on the internet like you. It puts him for public office. He came on to Clubhouse. He got a couple of $1,000 of donations, as far as I know.
Steve, I got $600. $600, Steve. 600. If you get over 5,000, you have to file with the Federal Election Commission and file your account.
My understanding is that you got a couple of thousand.
I got $600 bucks.
And then of your 12 or 1,500 signatures, they were only able to verify a couple of hundred were legit, which is why an investigation was opened up against you for election fraud.
There was no investigation opened for election fraud.
Am I right or wrong?
Steve, there was no investigation. Hello? Are you going to let me speak after these ludicrous accusations? Steve, I ran a clean campaign. I didn't forge any signatures. I raised $600 to run for Congress, and I caused a panic for Darren LaHood in the 16th District, a well-known and powerful Republican congressman. And I am a public figure, just like you, Steve Appel. I paid my workers, my campaign workers. I paid my workers. That's what workers do. They get paid. It's called a job. It's called a circulator. You know what a circulator is, Steve? You can't pay. You got to pay them per hour. It's called division. Maybe you haven't done it in a while. I know your vision is going bad, so you probably don't look at a calculator.
I've never
But we got a map. Yeah, I know, Steve. It takes courage to do it. That's what I have. I'm a public figure, Steve. That's why you've never done it. But you host some bullshit sheriff. Okay, he ran away. Ha 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 ha. Had to go on a conference call to file another Social Security disability claim. Ha 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 ha.
Most times people would just bounce off the app and they come right back in 30 seconds or so. But maybe Steve is starting to talk. The same grace I extend Steve, I think that is the same grace I extend you by not coming out and say that I have to declare that all people are frauds and scammers. I've heard all the stuff people said, stuff you and other people on the app or whatever, but it's like you quoting me yesterday, a little bit out of context, but kind of the right idea. It's like at the end of the day, I really don't care. Like it's not my business. It's not my business to point the finger and tail wag on somebody who's not trying to immediately interfere my own doing. So I usually kind of stay out of it, but I just kind of try to judge what people are saying and what they're not saying. But I think people carry a lot of baggage from conversation to conversation. I generally don't even remember conversation to conversation that I have with people. I try to always be like that, and then just start the next conversation. Now, do I remember a little of it? Sure. Do you get the context? Yeah. But people doing flamethrowers all the time, and people just because they had a bad experience with them, whatever, right out the gate, and say, bro, that's what makes the app sometimes ridiculous.
Well, this is where I think people are unaware that they are their own worst enemies. And, what's interesting about AI and super intelligence is a corporation is indeed like its own super intelligent city or corporation. And this app is a corporation, and people plug into the corporation to have all this communication, to generate data, to generate revenue. But it's still a corporation. So in a way, this is like the corporation of the future where nobody gets paid to come to work. So, we are. Yeah, we're volunteers, but you could look at it as like employees and not volunteers because technically people come here with the attitude of an employee. And as you just witnessed, Steve, who works in the legal profession, for him, his kick is to come here and get to play the judge or an attorney because he's not an attorney. He's a paralegal.
Unpaid though.
Unpaid, but it's work. Don't because it's just your time. Where you spend your time is your work. The creation and the creative value you bring. So, in many ways, Clubhouse is like the empty space. You know, space is like a corporation as well. And the thing to me, which is so amazing, is if you study astrology and tarot and occult sciences or occult philosophy, especially with the zodiac and planets. Most people like I'm actually looking at the moon now in my backyard with a telescope. And when you spend time looking at a moon, and then you start thinking about the concepts attached to the moon, it's interesting. And not a lot of people, your average everyday person, doesn't have the time or the desire to maybe explore that content, which is just there. But it's just crazy that people will spend their whole lives and never contemplate what the fuck Saturn means, or what Jupiter means, or Mars, or Mercury, or Venus. I mean, do you like astrology, Miss? Do you like astrology, Miss Nancy?
Oh yeah, I do.
Because to me, those are. I don't necessarily mean like, you know, physical astronomy. I'm talking about the subjective, not the objective. And so I was going to try to bridge. I was going to try to bridge with Steve and say, listen, Steve, I'm playing devil's advocate here. I do side with you with regards to science and objectivity. Because to poo-poo SpaceX and what they do is ridiculous. Because honestly, it's fucking impressive and it's amazing. But building a tiny home for somebody on Figueroa Street, you know, in downtown Los Angeles, like that's also amazing. Everything is amazing. But the thing to me is priorities. Lunar terraforming is not the priority of America. And it never should be and never will be. But that's what Elon Musk says it should be. And that narrative farming, that content farming, it actually flows the federal dollars, tens of billions of dollars that Elon wants to get, because the truth is almost all profit is derived and created at the federal level. At $7 trillion a year, there's not a major corporation that does not receive tens of billions of dollars. And the big beautiful bill, the top corporation is Apple. They're getting a $70 billion a year tax credit. $70 billion. They don't need it. But what it is that means they don't have to pay taxes. They do not have to pay taxes. But at the individual level, when you file your federal income tax, you're paying a lot in taxes individually. Why is the individual supporting the government, but the biggest corporations aren't? What? Is it all the lobbying? It's got to be. So, anyways, I'm just saying that we need a serious corporate tax reform in this country. We cannot continue supporting the government on the backs of the workers. The liability has to transfer back to the mega corporations, the Fortune 500. If you don't think that is not one of the biggest problems, you know, and you've never talked about it, or you don't talk with people that do talk about it, I mean, to me, the issue is always tax reform. It's not ideological propaganda and polarized ideology. It is tax reform. That's the mega issue, in my opinion. It's the issue. It's always ever present.
Anyone who has so many accounts on this app, is that you?
Yeah, it's me.
Oh, wow. But that's also work and effort. You do more work than we do. We maybe 1-2 houses, that's it. But you're actually working on it that you get people there. Right? And you have a lot of accounts.
It's not heavy lifting. It's pushing the button.
I don't know. That looks to me.
Well, have you ever worked in a restaurant for 10 hours? I mean, I'm not coming home
Just asking,
broken.
just curious, because why after you? And I heard a little bit of what Steve said, but I didn't understand what was going on.
I ran for Congress, and I solicited money here, and people were promoting me here, and I raised a meager $600. $600. And I think my total campaign spent probably like 2,000. No, way more than that, like 4,000 or 5,000. And I had to generate signatures. And I'm accused by my opponent. Now, no, it's not the election commission. It is my opponent who I have accused of fraud. He accused me of fraud, but I accused him of fraud 1,000 times. So upset that I'm accused of fraud because I've accused him of fraud 1,000 times publicly. COVID-19 is the biggest fraud ever created in terms of legislation and HRX to create trillions of dollars in debt. So, I didn't forge any signatures. I paid employees to go out there and get me signatures in Rockford, which is in the precinct. And I think some of the people involved in the network of people, of the girl that I hired off of Craigslist, I think her boyfriend, they must have gone to a restaurant and bullshitted some of the petitions. Now, I have no way of knowing that. And they didn't do a full audit of my petitions. And the woman who worked for me is less than reliable. Let's put it that way. She was hard to communicate with. She disappeared on me. I had to hire an Uber to go to Rockford to bring the petitions to Chicago. She was extremely difficult to work with, and I was being shaken down. Okay? So.
Did you not fire her then? She worked for you.
Well, it's just a temp position. It's not some type of, business. So anyways, I'm just saying people on this app like to rag on me, but I have the experience now of running for Congress. That experience is invaluable. Not many people in their lives will ever experience that.
Congress for real.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Start to finish.
I never met somebody running for Congress sitting here on the app.
Yeah, I ran it start to finish. That was my second campaign. My first campaign was to run for committee person, which is a know-nothing, unpaid position within the party. And that was my first experience with lawsuits. There's a quasi-election court that every candidate goes through with regards to petitions and challenges to your signatures. And now I'm running for mayor of Chicago. The interesting thing about...
You wanted to be a mayor from Chicago?
Yeah, I'm a resident. I'm a resident of Chicago, and I'm running for mayor in Chicago. And the most interesting thing that I have discovered.
When you are accused of fraud, can you then become a mayor?
Of course.
Like Trump.
Well, you got to understand, fraud on the internet is just online rhetoric, banter, and defamation and slander. It's to defame an individual. And again, as I just said earlier, I defamed and slandered my opponent 10,000 times by calling him a fraud. Because if we have an unbalanced budget and you're siphoning $2 trillion off the top, which is just a skim, you are engaged in immoral, unethical, less than virtuous financial management of our system. It's my opinion. We could take out $2 trillion from our annual budget right now and call it a day. But we won't do it because that money is the cheddar. That's the cream on top of the milk. And what are you going to do? You're going to stop? You're going to stop the VIG? That's what it's come down to. We have a $40 trillion mortgage. We got a $2 trillion skim, and we have a $1.2 trillion annual interest payment. So the whole thing is now completely set up against the average American to completely impugn a system of debt slavery against you your entire lifetime. If you're 20, you can't escape this. So as a liberation mayor or a libertarian or a Republican or a Democrat, it doesn't matter what party I am in, you have to advocate for tax reform and ultimately debt resolution. Because it's unfair to ask a 21-year-old today to work for 50 years to service the debt. Like, we need a debt jubilee or some kind of consolidation. It's within our power to do these things because we can shape the narrative based off of our words. And it will bankrupt the entire system, and banks will become insolvent, but they will recapitalize, and new technology will have to take its place. We need the entire legal industrial complex to also, we need to see, this is the problem with Elon. We don't need to terraform the moon. We need to terraform industries and categories of business in our society. And we can't expect a 21-year-old with $120,000 in college student loans and $450,000 in federal debt liabilities to accept $1 million debt that they have to work to repay, and it's only growing.
Yeah, that's sad.
Norway doesn't have this problem. Saudi Arabia doesn't have this problem. Many countries do not have this problem. Their citizens have a surplus.
Lower the prices for the ones who really want to study.
I'm just advocating.
To lower the prices, I would say there are students that not like rich can have a job.
I'm just advocating for legal debt resolution, and not civil war and not violence ever, because we can settle this on the ledger with a pen. It was created with a pen. We can solve it with a pen. There's no need for violence. However, if you study the French Revolution, which is really like its own microcosm of violence and political polarization, but also intellectual and knowledge, intelligence, reformation about how to run society. We have an incredible opportunity in America to literally do as we please. And it's because the world has bought into America. America is like still the new world to China, to India, to Europe. We are this third-party agent which has the continuity of consciousness, which is what Elon wants to deposit on the lunar surface, which is stupidity, because we've already got it here. We've got to play our game here in America now and not waste our fucking money on terraforming the moon. Let's not be the what Elon Musk and his bronies, aka Adrian Dittman and his group of cool guys do, because they're not cool. Elon has issues. Elon Musk goes by the name Adrian Dittman, and you can listen to him every Friday, Saturday, goon out and play video games and cook a butter steak. It's not the leader that I would prefer in America. He's a German. He thinks like a German. In many ways, he is a supremacist, but you know, not the horrible type, because I have heard him actually attack low IQ racists on X who are extremely low IQ and brain rotted out. And they are incredibly toxic people that have huge followings that spread hate and discontent and friction and lies and propaganda of the worst kind, which is racial propaganda, which is defamation propaganda. And it's rampant. Oh, my friend is here. Anyways, this is the empty space. Hello?
Not an empty at all, but who's your friend?
I agree with you. North America puts very little emphasis on public harmonious relations between people. We just don't have that culture. We're individualists.
See, we are individualists because we think we are, but there is a collective unconsciousness within the collective. You know, there is a collective unconsciousness. You can't escape that. And that's what you can manipulate at scale, and that's what's happening.
No, exactly right. That's actually very insightful. There is no way to get away from the collective unconscious that is pop culture. This idea that people in North America are individualists is it's a lie.
He just went from going, we are all individualists, to none of us are individualists. You see how quick you can flip it?
This is put on this very little effort by the government to bring people together. it's problematic. It's very young and sharing selfish culture at this point in our development.
Well, I play music. I consider myself a musician, a politician, and a magician, amongst other things. But to me, being a musician is really the most fun because I think that there is a challenge that everyone individually has to face, which is how do I maintain intelligence, knowledge, and equilibrium to engage in some type of profitable trade? Because that little book I have, The Virtue of Selfishness, is all about altruism versus egoism. And you need a healthy balance. The healthy balance is really what you could call the middle pillar of strength. Can
you split the difference between altruism and what was it, the two that you mentioned? Altruism and...
This is why I read books, my friend.
Egoism. What's the difference? Like, can you kind of define and split?
Yeah. Altruism is sacrificing self or others for others, which is truly wealth redistribution. And that's what our country, we are a socialist, communist, state-run, capital-controlled economy. And egoism is essentially, I think, just a concept, because there is no such thing as an ego. But in relation to the comparison, egoism is not necessarily self-centered narcissism. I think it's just protectivism, security. It's the intelligence of how do I optimize, survive, and in that process, help other people become productive and creative and intelligent. Why do you think people go to school? And so I'm just saying that we have a unique opportunity, I think even with Clubhouse, to actually cut the budget for public education and force people to actually document their knowledge and document their education, which is you go on YouTube and you read a book. You have now confirmed to me that you've read this book from start to finish because you filmed yourself. Prove it! Don't tell me, show me. Show me!
I do want to push back. Sorry. Well, one thing I want to push back against.
Bull rush.
When we talk about altruism or equality, these sorts of things within North America, very often we're referring to money, things like money, but I don't see that as our largest problem. People lacking money is not a problem in itself. Not exactly. I mean, it is problematic. I think the greatest difficulty that we have is crafting a high trust society. If you're poor, but if you have health care, if you're poor but you feel like there is a very good chance of raising yourself up. If there's not much tension between different groups of people within a society, this is what we kind of want to work towards. But the news and the media is really, we're all about outreach culture, and I think this really holds us back from developing further here in North America. You've mentioned China. China high-ranking military personnel
or they didn't necessarily.
I'm talking about something different though.
They weren't compliant. So trust isn't compliance, and in China, it's compliance. It's
not.
This is a dictatorship with mass surveillance.
No. I'm talking about something. Dude, I understand what you're talking about. I understand, but I'm talking about something completely different.
Maybe
I know, dude. I know you're
yes. The behaviors of the populace are controlled by the top down. Yes, they are.
Okay, so, dude, I'm talking about something very different. What I'm talking about is a tradition in China, Japan, and Korea. These cultures I'm very well familiar with, and it goes back to 3,500 years, even before Confucius. Right. And so what I'm talking about is if you go into a Chinese village any place, the people who are of zero relation to the old lady, let's say the oldest lady that lives in the village, they always come and they knock on their door early in the morning on the way to elementary school. They knock on her door, even like I was saying, to no relation. They say, hey, Grandma, how are you doing? Is everybody okay? Right? And in a lot of these old villages, the houses are built in circles. They're like circular apartments. And everybody watches over each other. There's a very, very strong sense of community. And the Chinese developed this, right? And the reason they developed it, as you probably know, dude, is that they have a very dense population structure. The population density is very, very tight. And it creates this sense of community. What we have, and I feel that we want this in North America on a subconscious level.
No.
Okay, it's nothing to do. I know there's a lot of corruption in the Chinese government. I would never argue against.
No, I'm not
I know
talking
that
about
there's control
corruption. I'm talking about watching. You mentioned watching. Everyone's watching everybody, and there's control.
No, it's not like that. It's a different thing. It's a concern. There's a difference between control.
My Tibetan friends have a much different lived experience than what you're
Sure. I'm not. It's not different. Because in Tibet,
or anyone protesting in Hong Kong, they have a much different lived.
No, but the people in Hong Kong, look. My family's lived in Hong Kong for 40 years, bro. I'll give you an example from Hong Kong.
I'm talking about during the protest.
I'm talking about something completely different, dude.
No, I understand.
I'm talking about from the beginning up.
You're ignoring reality with your little.
I'm not ignoring. I'm not ignoring what you're saying, dude. I know these problems exist. I'm not talking about government control. I'm talking about a ground up thing. So you mentioned Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, they have these massive buildings where like 3,000 people live. They're called danchi, right? And these danchi, on the first floor, you have very cheap, when the businessmen, when they get ready to go off to work, you can go down to the first floor and everybody there in the morning has like a coffee, Hong Kong coffee, buns, and it's quite cheap. And everybody kind of, it's not socialism, but it is a very strong communal feeling, right? You say, I live in this apartment, and everybody kind of knows one another. What my whole point is that I'm getting to is that you had mentioned government control in China trying to oppress people, and I completely agree with that. But what we have here in North America is, I feel on a subconscious level, people want this communal thing. It's natural for all human beings to want this sort of high trust society. Is we have
go together. There are two ways of thinking about the same thing, or shall we say two dimensions of the same thing, just like length and breadth, or just, shall we say, like shape and color.